Welcome to A Year of War and Peace. I'm your host, Brian E. Denton. A Year of War and Peace is a daily, year-long, chapter-by-chapter reading of and meditation on Leo Tolstoy's epic novel, War and Peace. In these videos and podcasts, you'll be treated to a free reading of one chapter per day of the novel, plus a reflective essay I've written individually tailored to that day's chapter. These readings are offered for free, though if you'd like to support me, you can do so in one of three ways. First, you could purchase my ebook, A Year of War and Peace. It features the entire novel, plus all of my reflective essays, and it's only $2.99 on Amazon.com. You could also become a patron at patreon.com/Brian E. Denton. If you sign up there, you'll receive a sonnet once a month, plus a link to an ebook of my collected sonnets. Finally, if you like, you can make a one-time donation to my PayPal account. The email there is brianedenton@gmail.com. You can also use that email to contact me. I'd be happy to hear from you. Your support is greatly appreciated. Today's reading and reflection is on Chapter 160. Chapter 160. From the day his wife arrived in Moscow, Pierre had been intending to go away somewhere, so as not to be near her. Soon after the Rostovs came to Moscow, the effect Natasha had on him made him hasten to carry out his intention. He went to Tver, to see Joseph Alexeyevitch's widow, who had long since promised to hand over to him some papers of her deceased husband's. When he returned to Moscow, Pierre was handed a letter from Maria Dmitrievna asking him to come and see her on a matter of great importance relating to Andrew Bolkonsky and his betrothed. Pierre had been avoiding Natasha because it seemed to him that his feeling for her was stronger than a married man should be for his friend's fiancée. Yet some fate constantly threw them together. What can have happened? And what can they want with me? Thought he, as he dressed to go to Maria Dmitrievna's. If only Prince Andrew would hurry up and come and marry her, thought he on his way to the house. On the boulevard, a familiar voice called to him. "Pierre, back long?" someone shouted. Pierre raised his head. In a sleigh, drawn by two gray trotting horses that were bespattering the dashboard with snow, Anatoly and his constant companion, Makarin, dashed past. Anatoly was sitting upright in the classic pose of military dandies, the lower part of his face hidden by his beaver collar, and his head slightly bent. His face was fresh and rosy. His white plumed hat, tilted to one side, disclosed his curled and pomaded hair, besprinkled with powdery snow. Yes, indeed, that's a true sage, thought Pierre. He sees nothing beyond the pleasure of the moment. Nothing troubles him, and so he is always cheerful, satisfied, and serene. What I wouldn't give to be like him, he thought enviously. In Maria Dmitrievna's anteroom, the footman who helped him off with his fur coat said that the mistress asked him to come to her bedroom. When he opened the ballroom door, Pierre saw Natasha sitting in the window, with a thin, pale, and spiteful face. She glanced round at him, frowned, and left the room with an expression of cold dignity. "What has happened?" asked Pierre, entering Maria Dmitrievna's room. "Fine doings," answered Dmitrievna. "For 58 years have I lived in this world, and never known anything so disgraceful." And having put him on his honor not to repeat anything she told him, Maria Dmitrievna informed him that Natasha had refused Prince Andrew without her parents' knowledge, and that the cause of this was Anatoly Kuragin, into whose society Pierre's wife had thrown her, and with whom Natasha had tried to elope during her father's absence in order to be married secretly. Pierre raised his shoulders and listened open-mouthed to what was told to him, scarcely able to believe his own ears. That Prince Andrew's deeply loved affianced wife, the same Natasha Rostova who used to be so charming, should give up Bolkonsky for that fool Anatoly, who was already secretly married, as Pierre knew, and should be so in love with him as to agree to run away with him, was something Pierre could not conceive and could not imagine. He could not reconcile the charming impression he had of Natasha, whom he had known from a child, with this new conception of her baseness, folly, and cruelty. He thought of his wife. "They are all alike," he said to himself, reflecting that he was not the only man unfortunate enough to be tied to a bad woman. But still he pitied Prince Andrew to the point of tears, and sympathized with his wounded pride, and the more he pitied his friend, the more did he think with contempt, and even with disgust, that Natasha, who had just passed him in the ballroom, was such a look of cold dignity. He did not know that Natasha's soul was overflowing with despair, shame, and humiliation, and that it was not her fault that her face happened to assume an expression of calm dignity and severity. "But how get married?" said Pierre, in answer to Maria Dmitrievna. "He could not marry. He is married." "Things get worse from hour to hour," ejaculated Maria Dmitrievna. "A nice youth. What a scoundrel. And she's expecting him since yesterday. She must be told. Then at least she won't go on expecting him." After hearing the details of Anatoly's marriage from Pierre, and giving vent to her anger against Anatoly in words of abuse, Maria Dmitrievna told Pierre why she had sent for him. She was afraid that the Count or Bolkonsky, who might arrive at any moment, if they knew of this affair, which she hoped to hide from them, might challenge Anatoly to a duel, and she therefore asked Pierre to tell his brother-in-law in her name to leave Moscow and not dare to let her set eyes on him again. Pierre, only now realizing the danger to the old Count, Nicholas, and Prince Andrew, promised to do as she wished. Having briefly and exactly explained her wishes to him, she let him go to the drawing-room. "Mind, the Count knows nothing. Behave as if you know nothing either," she said, "and I will go and tell her it is no use expecting him. And stay to dinner if you care to," she called after Pierre. Pierre met the old Count, who seemed nervous and upset. That morning Natasha had told him that she had rejected Bolkonsky. Troubles, my dear fellow," he said to Pierre. "What troubles one has with these girls without their mother. I do so regret having come here. I will be frank with you. Have you heard she has broken off her engagement without consulting anybody? It's true this engagement never was much to my liking. Of course he is an excellent man, but still, with his father's disapproval, they wouldn't have been happy, and Natasha won't lack suitors. Still, it has been going on for so long, and to take such a step without father's or mother's consent. And now she's ill, and God knows what. It's hard, Count, hard to manage daughters in their mother's absence." Pierre saw that the Count was much upset, and tried to change the subject, but the Count returned to his troubles. Sonia entered the room with an agitated face. "Natasha is not quite well. She's in her room and would like to see you. Maria Dmitrievna is with her, and she too asked you to come." "Yes, you are a great friend of Bolkonsky's, no doubt. She wants to send him a message," said the Count. Oh dear, how happy it all was." And clutching his spare gray locks on the temples, the Count left the room. When Maria Dmitrievna told Natasha that Anatoly was married, Natasha did not wish to believe it, and insisted on having it confirmed by Pierre himself. Sonia told Pierre this as she led him along the corridor to Natasha's room. Natasha, pale and stern, was sitting beside Maria Dmitrievna, and her eyes, glittering feverishly, met Pierre with a questioning look the moment he entered. She did not smile or nod, but only gazed fixedly at him, and her look asked only one thing. Was he a friend, or like the others an enemy in regard to Anatoly? As for Pierre, he evidently did not exist for her. "He knows all about it," said Maria Dmitrievna, pointing to Pierre and addressing Natasha. "Let him tell you whether I have told you the truth." Natasha looked from one to the other, as a hunted and wounded animal looks at the approaching dogs and sportsmen. "Natalie," Pierre began, dropping his eyes with a feeling of pity for her and loathing for the thing he had to do. "Whether it is true or not should make no difference to you because—" "Then it's not true that he's married?" "Yes, it is true." "Has he been married long?" she asked. "On your honor." Pierre gave his word of honor. "Is he still here?" she asked quickly. "Yes, I have just seen him." She was evidently unable to speak, and made a sign with her hands that they should leave her alone. All right, that concludes my reading of chapter 160. Hope you enjoyed it. I will now proceed to my reflection on the same. A Year of War and Peace, Day 160. A History of Rage. Men have no more ready corrective of conduct than knowledge of the past. These are the words of Polybius, a Greek historian and Roman apologist. His book, The Histories, or what fragments remain of it, serves not only as a document of how the Roman Republic came to dominate the Mediterranean world, but also as a guide to the superiority of the Roman social, religious, and political institutions that empowered it to do so. The early portions of the histories, those covering early Roman history and later the Punic Wars, remain the most popular with readers today. Later portions, however, particularly the material covering King Philip V of Macedon, provide plenty ready correctives of conduct for the discerning reader. The story of King Philip V, at least as presented by Polybius, is the tragedy of a man whose downfall and defeat is born of his rage against those who have wronged him. Throughout the histories, Polybius consistently describes Philip as angry and rageful. This rage provokes Philip to engage in unwise battles of aggression. Some of these battles he wins. In the end, however, his skirmishes with his neighbors instigate the intervention of the emerging Roman hegemony, and, well, you can guess what happens next. In War and Peace, our characters will rage against Anatoly and against each other. Their rage is just as harmful as Philip's. We start off with Pierre. He's still upset, understandably so, with his wife. He's so upset, in fact, that just as he arrives in Moscow, he's already making plans to go away somewhere else so he doesn't have to be seen with her. He's also avoiding the Rostov house because of Natasha. This is a more moral decision on his part because, quote, it seemed to him that his feeling for her was stronger than a married man's should be for his friend's fiancée, end quote. Pierre's plan of avoidance is upset when Maria Dmitrievna writes to him that he must at once report to the Rostov home to discuss a matter of grave concern. Maria Dmitrievna too is angry, mostly at Natasha, who she constantly refers to as a slut, but also at Anatoly for being such a scumbag. When Pierre arrives, she informs him of the scandal, and Pierre joins her in her anger. In addition, Natasha is present, sitting at a window with a thin, pale, and spiteful face, so it's pretty much anger all around. There's what may appear to be some movement towards clemency in this chapter. Maria Dmitrievna thinks it wise to keep Natasha's indiscretions a secret for as long as possible, and in the meantime enlists Pierre to inform Anatoly of the situation so Anatoly can leave town and avoid the inevitable wrath of Prince Andrew, Count Rostov, and Nicholas. Is this really clemency, though? Probably not. The whole idea is predicated not on granting Anatoly pardon for his sins, but, rather, on the fact that the response to Natasha's romance with Anatoly is sure to be one of anger, rage, and revenge. This is not the rational way to respond to the bad behavior of others. It's the purely reactive way, and will only lead to further folly. We'd all do well to avoid such reactions. Remember King Philip V and Polybius, his latter-day biographer, who warned that the surest and indeed the only method of learning how to bear bravely the vicissitudes of fortune is to recall the calamities of others. Daily Meditation. Man, if you must be affected in this unnatural way at the ills of another, you should pity him rather than hate him. Give up this readiness to take offense and inclination to hatred, and do not introduce these expressions that the carping multitude use, away with these accursed and abominable idiots. Epictetus, The Discourses. Alright, so that concludes my reading of and reflection on chapter 160 of War and Peace. I hope you liked it. Thanks so much for listening. Remember that if you'd like to support me, you can do so either by purchasing the ebook A Year of War and Peace, becoming a patron at patreon.com, or making a one-time donation at PayPal. The links to all that are down below in the show notes. Tomorrow we're going to be reading and reflecting on chapter 161. I hope you'll join me. Until then, take care of yourselves and others.